I've been very interested in the MSI Claw ever since I got my hands on it at CES earlier this year. Not only is it the first Windows handheld from MSI, it's also the first one to pack one of Intel's Meteor Lake CPUs. Combine that with a 120Hz 1080p screen and some bold battery life claims, and the Claw is an exciting entry into the world of handhelds. And now, I finally have my hands on one. I'm going to be unboxing it and taking a quick first look at how it feels, performs, and how MSI's software holds up. Now, this video is sponsored by MSI to take a quick look at the Claw, but it didn't have any input on the content of this video. We don't do paid reviews, so these are my honest first impressions of the device. I'll be doing a full written review on digitaltrends.com where I'll cover battery life, in-depth performance testing, and all the nuances you don't pick up on immediately after taking the device out of the box. You'll find that linked in the description below when it goes live. With that out of the way, make sure to get subscribed and let's dig in. There's not much in the box for the Claw. You get the device itself, a handful of manuals, and a surprisingly long power brick, but that's it. There's no extra stand like you get with the Ally and no case like you get with the Steam Deck OLED. It's really just the device and a charger. The feel in the hands is very similar to the ROG Ally with these angled corners and two buttons on the rear that you can remap. The buttons and stick actually feel a lot nicer here though. The Claw is a bit heavier at 675 grams, but it's not overbearing like the Lenovo Legion Go. The extra weight is probably due to the thermal design. As you can see on the back, there's this dense stack of fins to keep the device cool. Outside of the face buttons, you have the USB-C charging port, which supports DisplayPort and Thunderbolt 4, so you can hook up an external GPU, as well as a microSD card slot and a headphone jack. You also have a power button with a fingerprint reader built in so you can sign in with Windows Hello. Taking the Claw out of the box, two things stood out immediately. The dual 2-watt speakers are super loud and surprisingly full, and the Wi-Fi is crazy fast. The Claw supports Wi-Fi 7 and my game downloads flew by. It's a definite upgrade from the Wi-Fi 5 on the Steam Deck, that much is for sure. I installed a handful of games and everything ran pretty well. Lighter games like Hades 2 and Another Crab's Treasure were definitely smoother, getting close to that 120Hz refresh rate that the display is capable of. A more demanding title like Elden Ring didn't fare as well, hovering around 40 FPS even when running the game at 720p. One bug I ran into was that the performance overlay wasn't showing my frame rate. It reported all of the other stats correctly, but it wouldn't hook into the games when I was actually playing them. Hopefully MSI will fix that shortly. Even with that, the gameplay experience for lighter titles is pretty good, and a lot of that comes down to the screen. I booted up the beautiful Tetris Effect to see how the screen handled the immense contrast in that game, and it looked incredible. This is an IPS display, so it's not quite as deep as what you get with the Steam Deck OLED, but it's surprisingly close with its glossy coating. I'll be doing more direct benchmarks for my full review, but for those lighter titles that I typically like playing on a handheld, like Hades 2, Another Crab's Treasure, Tetris Effect, you kind of get the gist. The Claw worked surprisingly well. It didn't get very hot either. The fans were a little loud, not enough to be distracting, but I couldn't feel the heat on the back of the device. Although I tried out a few games, this isn't an endorsement of the Claw's performance, at least not yet. I noticed a few stutters even in a couple hours of playing with the device, and I need to see how the handheld performs in an apples to apples power scenario. There's already been some criticism of the Claw's performance compared to other handhelds, so that's definitely something I need to take a closer look at when I get to my full review. MSI's cooling is doing something. After playing a game, you can feel a bit of heat toward the center of the device, but the edges where your hands are feel totally fine. The Claw is a bit heavier than the ROG Ally, but I'll take that if it can stay cool. Outside of playing games, you'll control the device through MSI's software called Center M. It's not too dense right now, but you can still see all of your games, launch individual applications, and manage your settings. You also have access to a quick settings menu that you can pull up at any time and customize with the features you want. It's clear that Center M is still a work in progress though. I don't mean that in a bad way, but I suspect that MSI will continue adding features and settings to the app like we've seen with other gaming handhelds. I'm really happy with what's here so far though. The big thing about Center M that I really appreciate is that it is smooth. Running these types of apps over Windows usually causes problems. The app takes a while to respond to inputs, the overlay gets confused about if it should show up or not, and sometimes your controller inexplicably won't work. For my first look, Center M really didn't have those problems. The overlay and app itself popped up immediately, and it always registered my inputs. The only quirks I ran into with the software were the aforementioned FPS bug and the app occasionally switching between desktop and game mode for the controls. Now, MSI allows you to set up 2 different sets of bindings depending on if you're on the desktop or if you're in the game, and sometimes it would switch when it wasn't supposed to. Thankfully, this never happened while I was in a game. It usually just happened when I booted one up. And the good news is you can toggle between them in the quick settings menu, so it never really became a problem. Now, the unit I looked at here, I need to note this, is the flagship model, if you can call it that. It's based on the Intel Core Ultra 7 155H, and it comes with 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD. And you're still free to swap out the SSD if you choose with your own M.2 2230 drive. From early impressions, the Claw looks pretty good. It feels good in the hands, the buttons and sticks are smooth, and it doesn't get too hot. However, performance and battery life are some pretty important areas for a handheld, and they're going to be 2 things that I really focus on when I do my full review. I mean, when I'm shooting this, I've had this thing for a few hours, so I definitely need more time with it before I'm ready to come to any firm conclusions. Thankfully, we've already seen a handful of BIOS updates from MSI and new drivers from Intel since the Claw launched, so it'll be really interesting to see where the device ends up after I've had a chance to fully test it. But in the meantime, let me know what you think about the Claw in the comments below, and if you want to see more videos with it and other gaming handhelds. Honestly, I love these things, so it'd be great to talk about them more. While you're down there, make sure to leave a like on this video and get subscribed. All right, thanks for watching everyone. I will see you in the next video.